Hello, everyone, and welcome. Great to see you. My name is Julie Mann, and I help men and women live healthy, happy, sustainable lives. I'm absolutely delighted because today I'm joined by Elizabeth Onyeabor. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, Julie. Happy to be here, join you from Nigeria.
Yeah, amazing. I do hope that I pronounced your name correctly.
It was good enough.
Good
It's
enough.
a hard name.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad it wasn't too bad. So, if for those of you that don't know Elizabeth yet, she is a speaker, an author, and a coach. So I know, Elizabeth, that you really love to help people who are struggling with perfectionism. So
Mhm.
I just need to ask, did you grow up in a home where you really felt under pressure to be perfect?
Yeah, but I didn't realize it for the longest time because it just seemed normal. Okay. So we called my mom Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, because her name was Mary and she was practically perfect in every way. And so I think I have I have two brothers and three sisters, so there's six of us. And the most interesting thing is, as we've grown up, I start talking to my sisters, and it's like each one of us took one aspect of our mother because she was so phenomenally accomplished. And oh, by the way, she was a perfectionist. Okay. So there's actually, even the research shows that there's a DNA component to perfectionism. So that happened in my family, and there's at least three, if not four of us kids that were perfectionists also. And so really my mother acted, she wrote, um, she was an editor, she sang opera, she painted portraits. I mean, so there was just so much. She was practically perfect.
Wow.
And so, how do you measure up to Superwoman?
Yeah.
You have to be Superwoman somehow, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've actually had an incredible career, haven't you? So how did your desire to be perfect play itself out at work? And when did you realize that actually, being that way really didn't work?
Okay, so let's talk about being perfect, right? Now, here is really the definition of a perfectionist. Now, I didn't know this for the longest time, but it's really the striving to make everything perfect, but never feeling that things or us are ever really good enough. And so there's this difference between where we think we should be, whatever our definition of perfect is, and where we think we're actually measuring, like, this is where we are, this is where we think we should be. And there's like always this gap, because even when we set the standard and say, wow, we met it, then we say to ourselves, well, crap, that was too easy. I need to set a higher standard. I didn't set it high enough. And so we set ourselves up for this no win situation. And just, if you can, for a moment, picture ourselves on a wheel of achievement like a hamster, just trying harder, running faster, seeing if we can do it. And you see, because we think that achievement is going to make us feel fulfilled and whole and love ourselves, but we're chasing the wrong thing. It doesn't happen. So for me, in school, that was getting good grades. I thought, I don't know why I thought this, because I knew my parents loved me. I mean, intellectually, I knew this. But emotionally, I felt like I needed to earn love. And so I was the good girl. I was the perfect princess. I tried to do the right thing. And I would tattletale on other people who weren't doing the right thing. And in school, I would try to get, the highest marks possible. I was not happy. I remember in high school even, and in the US, the highest marks are A's, A, B, C, D, F. F is failure. And I remember showing my marks to one of my teachers, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, you got all A's." And I said, "No, I didn't. You gave me an A minus."
Wow.
And I was not happy about that A minus. Now, I mean, I would get like a B or a B plus, but I wasn't happy about that. So later that turned into really striving to be the best person I could at work, doing things right, being liked, really putting myself out there. And it over the years, and I'd like volunteer, like, oh, you need somebody to do that? I'll do it. Because perfectionists are also people pleasers, okay? And we tend to go overboard in the way that we help others because we're trying to fill a hole in ourselves through helping other people. So all of these were factors, and then that turned into workaholism. So that sets me up for, honestly, I was 50 by the time I realized I can't take this pressure. And I didn't know what it was at the time. But what was happening was I had tried so long and so hard to be the perfect boss, the perfect mother, have the perfect family, be the perfect wife. You know, um, it wasn't a conscious thought, but it was this ideal I had in my head that just wasn't happening. And I was used to, just running faster on that hamster wheel and, thinking I was going to make things right and fix it. And I got to the point where one night wasn't so different from so many other nights, but just one little thing, one little extra thing that didn't go the way I had hoped. And I ended up crashing onto my kitchen floor, howling like a banshee. And all the hope that I had for this imagined future, just like I exhaled it all, in that, So in that moment, I curled into fetal position. And I hit rock bottom in that moment. And I don't even remember how I got into my bedroom. But somehow I did. And I remember researching ways that I could go to sleep forever. Because basically I just wanted to get rid of the pain. And I had no hope. But then somebody said to me, statistics saved me. Because I was looking at all these statistics about different ways that I could, have a painless end. And the statistics were not in my favor. In fact, they were, I was reading things like, oh, I could be, I have to have my stomach pumped. Like, wait, I was already feeling like a failure at life. Now, I was gonna screw up my death too. Like, that was just too much. So in a way, the pressure for perfectionist crushed me, but it also saved me, because it's like, well, if I can't get that right either, then, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? So I realized that things actually could be worse. Like, I thought that they couldn't be worse, but it could be worse. Like, I could screw up trying to kill myself, and I could survive it, and I could be worse off. Well, I didn't want that. and and the interesting thing is, we have an all or nothing mindset as perfectionists. So we either want to do it just so, or we don't want to do it at all. And so I remember just climbing onto my bed and crying into my pillowcase, because it's like, well, I felt like such a failure, and then I couldn't even, do what I wanted to do. And, but then the next day, the things that had bothered me so much, I mean, there was a little glimmer of hope. And some of the things that I thought were never going to happen. And, so that was actually my rebirth, and what people may call the dark night of the soul. And it took me a few years, and I put myself in fix-it mode. But this time, I put myself in fix-it mode for myself, not trying to fix everybody else.
Wow. I mean, I'm so glad that you're talking about this, Elizabeth, because it's a massive problem, isn't it? And even though I have never been a perfectionist, I've got my own version of not being good enough. And yeah, so addressing it, I think, is really, really important. So you mentioned a couple of things that were kind of behaviors that you had as a perfectionist. Are there any other kind of symptoms that perhaps you haven't mentioned? So you talked about fixing it and people pleasing, and either wanting to do the utmost, or just not bother at all. Anything else that is kind of common around that condition, if you like?
Well, I mean, let me explain it this way, because it's not like only perfectionists have this not good enough feeling, okay? But all perfectionists have this not good enough feeling, okay? And we may describe it slightly differently, but I describe the way I experienced it this way. It was like a black hole. And every accomplishment I did got sucked into it. And it didn't matter what I did, how great it was, how fantastic. It just would go and sucked into that black hole, and never good enough. So it really didn't matter what the accomplishment was, because I could never truly celebrate it. Okay, so as perfectionists, we tend not to celebrate our accomplishments. We're very driven to achieve in whatever way we think is, going to work for us. And I remember taking this self-assessment called StrengthsFinder many years ago. And so the whole idea behind StrengthsFinder is that all of us have certain strengths, and we should really build on those strengths. Well, one of those strengths, my top strength, was achiever. And I was like, yeah, I'm an achiever. And it wasn't until after I had my, howling on my kitchen floor, and I went back and I read that assessment and it really struck me because the assessment said, as an achiever, you're never going to feel completely satisfied. And I thought, well, that explains a lot. Like, I'm never going to feel satisfied. And I just have to live with that lack of feeling satisfied or fulfilled the rest of my life. Like, well, I didn't like that outlook, but I had some sense of like why, like it was wrapped up in my achiever. Well, but that's really being a perfectionist. They just didn't say it was perfectionist. So we're not good at celebrating. We go on to the next thing in our to-do list because we're on this wheel. But I'm happy to say that these people are wrong because I do feel fulfilled. I found a way to close that not good enough, that black hole of feeling unfulfilled, and I filled it with light and love because I was chasing the wrong thing. I didn't need to earn love. I needed to nurture love because love was already there. I was born worthy. I didn't need to earn it. So when I stopped chasing achievement in the hamster wheel and, went through what I call my 7 happy habits that I nurtured, like that developed self-love. And that's what I really wanted. And then I can celebrate achievements. I can, but the achievements are not the objective. They're just icing on a beautiful self-love cake.
Because you're enough whether you achieve it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, great. I love that. Obviously, there are going to be some people watching who are going to really resonate with what you're saying. So have you got any advice?
Well, I do. I have, okay, first of all, treat yourself as if you were your best friend. Okay? We're really hard on ourselves as perfectionists because mistakes don't mean, oh, we made a mistake. A failure doesn't say, oh, well, that's something to learn from. We're like, I am flawed. I am a failure. But our best friend would never talk to us like that. Our best friend would say, oh, it's okay. Like, everybody makes mistakes. And, you'll do better next time and something like that. So this is compassion, forgiveness. So if we begin to treat ourselves as if we're our best friend, one day we will become our best friend.
Brilliant advice.
So that's probably, sorry. That's probably the number one thing I would say is to, self-compassion and forgiveness.
And the great thing is
And I have go ahead.
So, and the great thing is people can start today.
Oh, yeah.
Right now.
Just like it's not easy, but step by step. And I have what I call 7 happy habits. And they spell out an acronym, happier, HAPPIER. So these habits are, first of all, to have a healthy expression of emotion, because I discovered that I was suppressing my emotions. I didn't want to be seen as an angry person, but by repressing anger, I was also suppressing joy. So I call this healthy expression of emotion. The second is to allow forgiveness. everybody makes mistakes. We're all human. And making a mistake doesn't make us a bad person, doesn't make us flawed. And they really can be opportunities for learning. So that's the A of happier, which is allow forgiveness. And then the two P's, the first is personal empowerment, and the second one is passion and purpose. So personal empowerment is really about focusing on those things that are within our control, our thoughts, our emotions, our responses, rather than unconscious automatic reactions. Because I was trying to fix everybody else in situations, but when I started trying to work on myself, then the beauty unfolded. And the second P of passion and purpose is everybody has passion and purpose, but we may need to be a little curious and uncover it. And I discovered a writing passion that I never knew I had. And it just unfolded for me. And now I started writing songs and singing. And just so much that unfolded. And I used to really be envious of people who said, oh, I'm passionate about ABC, because I never felt passionate about anything. But you see, by expressing healthy emotions, I was able to tap into the depth and realize that I did have passion. I just didn't allow myself to feel it or express it. And then the I is inspiration, and inspiration is really about being part of something that includes yourself but is bigger than yourself. Now, whether that's religion or spirituality, however you define it for yourself, mindfulness, these types of things that allow for connection to your truest self, your highest self, God, whatever spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. And then the E of happier is exercise and self-care. Our body wants to be, fed healthy food. It wants to move, and these are things that help us. And then the R is routine, and it's not the kind of routine you may think, because I needed to do something that worked for me, and I couldn't do all these things every single day. And if I missed every single day, I felt like I had failed on trying to improve myself. So I gave myself permission to call my routine day by day and moment by moment. So long as I have momentum and I keep these routines going, it's okay if I miss a day here or there. Like we were just talking about, I've been sick, and not every day have I sat down and done my writing. So I allow myself that, and then I do these moment by moment deeper dives into exploring and being curious about things. So those are some steps that work for me, and I'm sharing them in case they help others.
I love that, Elizabeth. That's pure gold right there. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I know that you actually live in Nigeria, don't you? So what are some of the challenges of living and working there?
Well, infrastructure is a big challenge. So right now, I think people can see that there's a little variance, a little bit of flicker in the light. And that's probably because there's a welder down the line on the electrical line, and I think he's probably making the lights fluctuate. So we have, weird things like that happen. I know in a lot of places, this is not unique to Nigeria, but the rules of the road are a bit more flexible. And so people may drive on the wrong side of the road unexpectedly just because it's more convenient than going all the way around somewhere, or because we have 2 seasons, dry and rainy, and when it rains, it tends to erode roads that are not well built. And so we tend to get these gallops, and so those can also be a challenge. So infrastructure was probably the most challenging for me because I was used to having constant electricity, not needing a generator. And with the work that I do now, my internet connection, sometimes I sound like a robot or it goes away completely, especially when it rains. So the speed of the internet is not as fast. So those are some of the challenges. And yet I'm still so pleased that I've been able to do so much of what I want to do and connect with so many people like you know, despite all of these things. But I must say that people here are very friendly and warm, and the weather and it's tropical, right? And just the fruits, the papaya, the pineapple, the plantain, bananas, soursop, so many lovely things that are grown here. And so, and then we have some land in the village, which is just this beautiful grove of bamboos, okay? These bamboo trees. And so when the wind rustles, it's just the most amazing sound. I love it.
Wow. Actually, the bamboo is a very interesting species, isn't it? Because, I don't really call it a species, but anyway, because of the fact that it doesn't grow for years and years and years, and then suddenly it shoots up. And I think it's a great lesson in terms of, that sometimes we can, be plugging away at what we're doing and not see anything. And then suddenly, over time, things, flourish.
Absolutely. So I love that bamboo because, and it actually inspired a name for my consulting business, which is Atra Bambus. So Atra means bamboo in my husband's language, and Bambus is also bamboo in Norwegian. My grandfather's Norwegian. So, so I combined that sense of the bamboo and the growth that, sometimes we don't see the progress, like you say, but as we allow it and nurture it, it can grow beyond even our expectation because the bamboo grows so tall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing about bamboo, they grow together, and we can always go further together than we can individually when we collaborate.
I love that. I had no idea. Okay, so you've touched on some challenges that you've already experienced. So I'm just really curious to know, Elizabeth, what's the biggest challenge you've ever had to overcome? Now, I know you talked about, collapsing on your floor. Maybe that was the biggest one. Is that the biggest challenge that you've ever had to overcome in your life?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I've had a lot of challenges, okay, but I would say that was the single biggest challenge because I had not acknowledged and I didn't know that I had been struggling with depression for decades, but I had kept myself busy. So I could see when I looked back as a teenager that I had written things like, I'm feeling depressed, feel lonely, feel sad. So when I wasn't busy taking 7 classes in high school instead of the normal 6, and also performing in community theater, and then also, working and doing other things, when I wasn't keeping myself busy, that void would come forward. So I would say that actually was the biggest challenge, but it was the biggest win. I mean, like it was the biggest gift to really explore and understand and go through that, like embrace the darkness and realize that there was always light, because in we wouldn't be able to see the shadows if there wasn't light, right? So, but I was focusing on the shadows. So that really was my biggest challenge, but it was also my greatest gift at the same time, because of the duality of, you know, life isn't perfect, it never will be perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect anymore, right? What I embrace now is, you know, everything as it comes, and the opportunities for exploration and being curious.
Absolutely. And what's brilliant is that gift that you've got for yourself, you're now sharing with the rest of the world. And I absolutely love that. I think it was about a year ago that you set up the Habitual Happiness Hub, didn't you? Whatever
Mhm.
that?
You know, it's funny because the impetus for that was, I had been saying to myself, well, someday I'm going to, you know, create some online course. But I was so busy in the organizational development consulting work that I do, which is interesting because it's really organizational transformation. So I also was working with leaders on personal transformation in the corporate world. But then when COVID came and my international consulting work came to a standstill almost overnight because the borders closed, and the borders closed for 6 months. And I said to myself, well, okay, now that I can't fly and do consulting and all the projects are on hold, I guess no. And so I set up a course for perfectionists. I call it the Pathway Beyond Perfection. And that's really to help everybody, you know, have a basic mindset, skill set, tool set in order to nurture self-love and, you know, accept that we are perfectly imperfect. And so that Habitual Happiness Hub was also an outgrowth of knowing that for me, this is nurturing, like happiness happens along the journey. And it's, for me, it's habits. It's not something that I just check the box and say, okay, I've done everything I needed. I don't need to do anything more. I'm just going to be happy the rest of my life. Like, that's not the way it works for me. So, so I share happiness is a habit, and that's why I call it habitual happiness.
Wonderful. Of all the things that you've ever done in your life, Elizabeth, and you've done so many things, what are you most proud of?
Well, you know, two things come to mind, but they all really boil down to relationship and love. And so I'm most proud of, you know, my family relationships, my friend relationships, and my relationship with myself. And so what really gives me the greatest joy is to have discovered this ability for self-love, and to take that self-love and deepen the love I have and the relationships I have with others as a result of that, because now I can be my most loving self to them as well as to me. And I just don't think it gets any better than that.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Obviously, I'm going to be posting your links below the video so people can come and check you out. I really recommend that you do that. and just take advantage of Elizabeth's wisdom. Before we go, just one more question, Elizabeth. When you're no longer on this planet, how would you like people to remember you?
You know, 2 words come to mind. Compassionate companion. And it's interesting because Onyeabor, which is the name I married into, my last name, actually means companion. And I didn't realize this for the longest time, that I had kind of been thinking of myself as a compassionate companion, like I've walked through the shadow, the valley of my shadow and wished for death and all that kind of stuff. And like now I can be a tour guide. But I can visit these places. So I guess I really I would love to be remembered as someone who helped people to find their own inner light, let it shine, and pass the torch.
Fabulous. Elizabeth Onyeabor, thank you so very much. Everybody, please check out Elizabeth's links and do subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Thank you.